Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES, that is, at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is politics done right.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willies, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are going to have a wonderful show for you today. We have a very special guest today, and I want to make sure and introduce her as appropriately. We are going to have an interesting show specifically because you know what we've been talking about for a very long time. Activism and people going out there and, not just talking about it, but actually doing it. That is what we have here. So what's the title of the show today? The title of the show today is Community Activist Dr. Donna Murphy Talks the Issues. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, I've got your back. Anyhow, subtitle, Real Activism Occurs One Individual at a Time, Uniting Others Who Want to Make Change. Both Donna Murphy and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez epitomizes that reality. So folks, that is what we're going to be talking about today. We are at an impasse in our country. We are at a tipping point between autocracy and true egalitarian democracy. Many believe the fight is between Trump and Democrats or progressives. That could not be further from the truth. The fight is between our ears. We are a country that allowed a plutocracy to indoctrinate us so that we continue to fight each other for policies detrimental to us all. The goal of Politics Done Right is to help fix the issues between our ears, our minds, our thought process. And in that light, we will continue to bring those on the front line who form part of the enlightenment brigade. And that's what I call folks like Donna Murphy, the enlightenment brigade, because they make things happen. Today, we're honored to have Dr. Donna Murphy. She's a neurophysiologist and epileptologist. Had to say that carefully. And chair and founder of Pantsuit, Republic of Texas. She is a staunch community activist who formed a part of the brigade that turned Harris County, Texas, not blue, but solid blue. So, Mademoiselle Donna, how are you doing today?
I'm great. Thanks so much for having me on the show. Thanks, Egberto.
Well, I've been wanting to have you on for quite some time because, as you know, I've been watching all the work that you've been doing around town for a very, very long time. And I think it is essential that, I think folks like yourself, what you do is you inspire others to go out there and do what we have to do to make the changes that we have to make in the country. So first of all, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm born and raised in Houston. Grew up in Northwest Houston in Cy-Fair and then spent high school in Spring Branch. Went to Harvard undergrad for 4 years. Came back to Texas to do an MD PhD in neuroscience at Baylor College of Medicine. Did a brief postdoctoral research stint at Baylor College of Medicine, and then ultimately decided to leave for a startup company in EEG diagnostics. So that's what I've done professionally. In the last couple of years, I've gotten very, very involved in community and political organizing work. And I think as a lot of us have, right? And and in that capacity, I think I've been involved in a number of different issues areas, primarily immigration. But also I've done a lot of youth organizing related to immigration and to other issues. A lot of reproductive justice work, work with the LGBT community, a lot of intersectional work, coalition building. Yeah, a lot of different things.
Well, I mean, that is a tall order. I mean, especially given your professional background. I know you're in a. Let's first tell a little story. Donna, I don't know how Donna has that calm face on right now. She was faced with a power failure and had to race over to a coffee shop to be here. And you know what? She said 8 minutes. So I said, you know what? I'm going to send a message to all our folks and let them know that we are going to be late by about 5 minutes and getting the program started. And bing, my phone came up and it said, "Oh, I'm here." So within 2 minutes, we got Donna cropped into the video and we got Donna ready for the broadcast. So Donna, first of all, I guess your activism is not only on the social justice and economic justice and all these other things, but it's also on time justice. So.
Yeah, well, it's important, I think, to get the message out. I was really honored to have the opportunity to speak with you and to the people who listen to your show. So didn't want to miss that or to postpone it at all. So, yeah, I made it happen.
Well, you sure made it happen, and we like that you make that happen. So tell me, what are you working on right now? There are some specific questions I want to ask later on, but I kind of want to give you the platform to kind of tell our audience what you're into and what are the pressing items right now as far as you see it.
Sure. And are we talking about here like the issues that I have been working on, or are we talking about my run for Pearland School Board, or both?
That's why I said later on I want to talk about that, because we preach about not only being a part of the system, but actually getting into electoral politics. I want to take care of that at the end, because I want you to really explain to folks why you must be there. But beforehand, let's talk about your social issues.
Yeah, sure. So lately, I guess it would be in the last 6 to 8 months, I've gotten very involved in, actually it's more than that. It's been like maybe 12 to 18 months in detention work. So this is immigration detention. I've ended up working with individuals and families primarily who are children who were separated from their parents, but also dependent adults whose families are trying to get them released from immigration detention. I realized a lot in doing this work that there is tremendous overlap between the immigration detention system and the prison industrial complex. And yeah, it's made me much more committed also to see that we take action on criminal justice reform and really carefully examine how much of our societal investments are in this private industry of really kind of devastating Black and Brown communities. So that's been a lot of my work. It's with children who are incarcerated through Project Lifeline, which is a nonprofit organization that I started with a friend of mine who is an attorney that has been very invested in immigration and human rights for the last 40 years. She's been leading on the Flores site visits with the Center for Human Rights and Constitutional Law. And Pantsuit Republic, I continue to be very involved on the board. I've stepped back. We wrote into our bylaws that the people in the top positions will actually rotate out after a couple of years, just to make sure that we keep fresh ideas in there and keep it representative. So I'm now participating as just one of the board members, and it's still great. They have the new leaders, Diane Alexander and Silky Malik, have some great ideas. We brought youth leaders onto the board who are actually high school students, 2 young women, and it's been so amazing and inspiring to work with them as well. That's probably where I spend a good deal of my time. I'm also a board member for the Korean American Association and Community Center of Houston, and with them lately, I have been doing a lot of work regarding voting rights. We unfortunately had an incident in Harris County where we had been tossed out of polling sites during early voting in the midterms. And that was a function of, I think, some misunderstanding, but also I think maybe some bias against our community of Korean language speakers, basically. And so I've been working with a lot of national civil rights organizations and local organizations to ensure that moving forward, and we have now, I think, a county clerk who's willing to work with us and ensure that we have language access for our community.
Yeah, in fact, Diane Troutman is going to be on with us to talk about all what she has planned for changing the way we vote here in Harris County. She'll be on February 19th. But You've been doing a lot. I mean, one of the things that was impressive, I think you went to the border with an entire group to go ahead and with this immigration issues that we're talking about. So, I mean, you've been all over the place. Tell us a little bit about what you did out there at the border and what was the whole idea behind the movement that you guys had with that caravan going down there.
Sure. So what we noticed, how did I get in touch with? So the woman that I work with on Project Lifeline, her name is Hope Fry. I think we got in touch initially because I had reached out to Peter Shea, who is the executive director of the Center for Human Rights and Constitutional Law. He's lead class counsel for the Flores settlement. And he and I had been talking about nationally trying to organize physicians and lawyers so that they can work in concert. Like when these children get released from immigration detention, they have so many traumas and also physical ailments, a lot of them, that need to be addressed. And they're often lost in the system as they transition out of immigration detention or ORR facilities, the Office of Refugee Resettlement facilities or shelters, into the communities where they go. And so I had been talking to Peter about that, and he put me in touch with Hope, and Hope and I just casually had a conversation about children in immigration and detention in general, because this was in light of the recent family separation crisis over the summer. She mentioned that, there are actually like 130,000 kids every year who go through the system, and I was not actually aware that it was that profound a problem. Yeah, so like all summer long, all we heard about were the 3,000 children or so, 3,000 children who had been separated from their parents, which is egregious, right? I think we all agree across the political spectrum that was an egregious violation of human rights. But nobody really knew about these other 130,000 children every year, right? For the last couple of years.
Right.
That have been in these facilities. Like they go through the processing centers that are known for deprivations, like the lack of access to food and to water and to warmth, to basic medical care, to sanitation, things like that. People weren't really aware of those things until there was some visibility brought to the subject because of the family separation crisis. And we felt that there was an opportunity here to broaden or to kind of scope that problem, right? So people had a better understanding of how persistent this problem is. And it's not just about shutting down a family separation policy, right? It's much, much bigger than that. And it's a conversation that we have to continually revisit, because I think people get accustomed to it. I don't know, immune to it after a while, right? With all of the assaults. So
I'm glad that you mentioned that people get accustomed to it, because what we find is there's this new normal that is starting to get established. And this new normal that's getting established is very dangerous. I mean, things that Trump doesn't seem all that strange anymore. Hurting people doesn't seem all that strange anymore. And I think some of the work that you do in highlighting that when you go to the border, or in highlighting some of these issues, I think what they really do is they kind of recenter people's minds onto what really is normal, what really is moral. So I think that is a very important statement that you've made there, where you specify we have to make sure that we keep these things in people's minds, because it is easy. I don't see it, I forget it. I don't see it, it's not happening.
Right, exactly. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of become the mission of Project Lifeline is to bring continual visibility to what is happening to these children and to create opportunities for people to be empowered to help change that. Because
right.
a lot of what we were hearing was that people wanted to help, they didn't know how. So we wanted to plug them in to help in a variety of ways. I'm super excited, actually. Today I got an email from a woman who is organizing a group of Japanese, the people who were interned during World War II. So a lot of them are quite elderly now, but they see a lot of parallels in the incarceration of these children and the incarceration of their families during World War II. And there was a place in Texas called Crystal City, which is not far from San Antonio, where some of these people were interned, and they're planning to make a pilgrimage there in March, and wanted to collaborate with organizations that are working on the issue of incarcerated migrant children. So they reached out to me and to a couple of other organizers, and I think that would be an amazing opportunity to connect with people intergenerationally, cross-culturally, to really understand that this is in many ways, history repeating itself. Because we're not attentive, to what has happened historically that, in retrospect, we're like, that was wrong. We should not have done that. And we're repeating some of those same things now. So
I like that you're using the right words. You're using when you make statements like they are interned. I think it's important that we use those words because what happens is when they said, "Oh, they make it look like they're," if you listen to the news, it seems like they're just in a hold-in hotel or something like that. When in reality, they're interned. They're really in jail. They're really locked up in a manner that they can't, that they have no freedom. So they're running from persecution, and they come to the United States, and they're again treated without dignity. So I think what you're bringing forth is so important to the entire, not just to the movement, but to to just to promote humanity. A country that purports to be a humane country.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I totally agree.
know.
Yeah, and we just got back actually on Tuesday. A group of us, I organized about 10 of us to go to Austin because the 86th state legislative session is happening now for Texas, and that happens every 2 years. And it's our opportunity to talk to our legislators in Austin as they're making policy, what we want of them, what we demand of them in terms of immigration policy. And it was heartening to see the support that we have. And again, like students who are interested in these issues because they really affect them. I mean, there is, again, as there is every legislative session, an attempt to get rid of in-state tuition.
Right.
Undocumented students. And really, like, the in-state tuition is meant to serve Texans, people who live in Texas. And there are so many undocumented students who live in Texas. They deserve a right, access to that same education as any other Texans,
Now, Donna, I have a question for you because I agree with that statement 100%. How do we let folks understand the morality behind every Texan, irrespective of documentation, getting an education?
Yeah, I mean, for me, and I think for most people, what it should be is just kind of recognizing like mutual humanity, right?
Right.
That every person has the right to a decent life. Every person has the right to validating work. Every person has the right to opportunity for their children, right? Like, I don't understand how that is not something that is comprehensible to people, right? Like, it shouldn't matter, like, that you originally came from some other country, right? It's interesting, the coalition that we went with, I originally connected with them because they were doing a statewide, like, coordinated campaign based on the economic impacts of SB 4, which is this, like, racial profiling law, right? The Show Me Your Papers law. I was really uncomfortable with that narrative. And I made it so that, when I ended up organizing the Houston arm of that, it was different. The narrative was a bit different. It wasn't about how can these immigrants serve us, right? How can they serve us? It was about, like, flip that on its head. How can we create the opportunities and support the immigrants to find validating work for themselves? Right? Like, that, I think, is so important. Each of us wants that for ourselves, for our families, the security of it, right? Yeah, I mean, that's something, I think it's a fallacy. It's something that we fall into because we're trying to appeal to a certain audience.
I mean, you just hit the nail on the head. We have to start trying to appeal to an audience and bring that audience in.
Yes.
Because my thing is, what a whole lot of progressives are doing today is they're trying to make policy that is amenable to some, in others, degrade a policy to make it amenable to others. What we need to do is bring morality into these others so that they can see the relevance or the necessity for the policies that we put out. And I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. And that's the difference that with the new crop of progressives that I see with the work that you guys did to turn Harris County blue, something that we need to put throughout the country. And for all the listeners from around the country, this is the template. We don't try to change to make it palatable to the less. what we do is we do what is right, and we preach and we teach what is right.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you. It's an interesting question because I think that people have like their concepts of what is right. I mean, sometimes has to do a bit with where they're coming from. Let me give you an example here. In Pearland ISD, right, it used to be predominantly Anglo. It used to be predominantly Christian. And we've seen a lot of demographic changes in the area, right? A lot of the policy, I think, with respect to, for instance, how we handle mental health issues in the district, it's been very heavily colored by that heritage. And as things change, right, as the people change, those in elected office, I think, have a responsibility to reflect that change, right? So there was a time when maybe it would have been right to do what they have been doing as far as like, let me just give you a discrete example here. When we had a few mental health issues come up with a few unfortunate youth suicides in the district decided that they were going to partner with a Christian counseling service and with a number of area churches, right? If your population is uniformly Christian, right? And
okay.
even there, I have to say there is heterogeneity among Christians, right? But let's just put that aside, that heterogeneity aside. If it were uniformly Christians, right, I could see how one could make the argument that, that's representative to invite them into this conversation about how we can handle these kinds of issues, right? But when it's not, when it's 11% Asian and 35% Hispanic, I don't think that that's appropriate anymore, right? And that's where I say, like, what is, quote, right? I do agree that there is, like, overall a morality. What I'm driven by, and I think what at least, the fundamental principle that everybody should be driven by is a morality that ensures that we don't oppress anyone, right?
Exactly.
That's crucial. And I think one that encourages us, empowers us to support each other, to do things that are meaningful, with our lives. I think that those things are very important. And I think that that's like across faith, I think across belief systems, that's something that hopefully we can agree upon. Anyway, so those are some of my thoughts.
I mean, it is. I mean, it's something. I mean, it goes without saying. And what we have to do, again, in the past, we acquiesced to that behavior in the past. Now is the time that now we don't, and because first of all, there was no benefit out of that. But I want to start getting now with exactly what you're going to be doing in the next few months, because as it turns out, you are starting to put your actions where your mouth has been for a long time, and that is to be engaged. And I think it's a perfect segue from you talking about Pearland and how they handle the shooting, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So why don't you tell us what is the next step in your life?
Yeah, so I want to be careful here to say that this is not me transitioning out of doing some of the important work that needs to be done in these other areas that I had been involved in before. I continue to be involved.
Let me stop you for a second. I don't think anybody who knows you would ever have thought that was a possibility. So continue, please. Yeah.
I think it will, in some ways, inform the work that I do. I mean, some of these areas, maybe not so much, not very explicitly. But yeah, so I decided, and I think this was a convergence of a few things that happened. For a long time as an activist, I think this is the narrative among activists. It's that, real change happens from the outside in, right? And I had even convinced myself as like a biologist, right? Evolution happens not because internal forces compel an organism to evolve, but because external forces, right? And so I had bought into that narrative completely. Like, I don't ever want to be a part of the system. I always want to be outside of the system, right? But then I realized that that there has to be someone on the inside that's receptive to the push. And sometimes in some places, you don't have those people in office. And I think that Pearland ISD is one of those places. I've gone a number of times now to school board meetings. And I have also, I was very pleased to be invited to something called United for Kids, which is an attempt for the school, for a school district to collaborate with community organizations, which I think is very well intended, at least, right? And so they had invited me to partake in that. I had gone initially to the school board because I was concerned about our immigrant students and families in this political climate, right? I don't have to get into the politics of what's happening. If we can just acknowledge that it is creating some challenges for our immigrant students and address those challenges, we don't have to talk about the politics of it.
Right.
But I was given really no platform to try to reach out to those families. And it was not clear to me at all that any effort was being made within the district to do that either. I mean, there's nothing devoted to those families, like to DACA students, for instance, or to undocumented students without any kind of status, right? There's no mention of resources for those families on the website. And that is true for like HISD, for instance, right? Spring Branch even will have they had a dedicated session for DACA students when they had a college readiness fair. And that was not happening here. And that was disturbing to me. And I wanted, as a community member, to help the district do that. Because I understand also, resources are limited, right? What personnel is going to be devoted to that endeavor? So I get it. So I said, you know what, I'm connected to a lot of community organizations, and I myself am capable of delivering some of this content to the people in the district. There's just no interest in it. And ultimately, I was like, the reason there's no interest is that it's that our school board is not representative. They just don't understand. It's not that they're coming from a bad place necessarily at all, right? It's that they don't understand what our immigrant families are facing. So as much as I can try to explain that to them, they are not going to be receptive to the message. So somebody needs to be there that will be receptive to that message. And that it was the convergence of that with also my two kids have kind of always flown under the radar. They've always been very self-driven. I've never had to help them with anyone. And that's maybe in part because of my parenting style. I've always tried to empower them to take care of things on their own. But recently, they're both in junior high. They had come to me with a few things that had happened at their school that really were very disturbing to me. And I kind of brushed them off. When my kids told me about those things, they said, life is not perfect. Suck it up, and deal with it. And then I realized that that's not the message to teach. With all of the activism that I do, it's entirely inconsistent with that message, right?
Exactly.
It's that if you're affected by something in a way that is oppressive, you should take action, right? And you should mobilize the people around you to take action. So I wanted to set that example, and all these other things were going on as well. So I was like, yeah, I think that maybe I should run, and this is a local office where I feel like I really can make some discrete changes. And the more I dig, or the deeper I dig, I feel the more I find would benefit
right.
some change. Yeah.
Well, that is great. So now we have Donna Murphy, who is running for the school board in Pearland, Texas. What we want is for everybody around this country to remember that the school board is closest to you. It's closer to you than the senator. It's closer to you than your national congressman. So these are things that we need progressives to populate so that they can make the change that Donna is talking about. Because we can scream in the streets as much as we want. But as Donna just noted, there are times you have to be on the inside to make change, and that is what she's intending to do. So we know that if Donna is on a board in Pearland, there are going to be changes made in necessary changes made in Pearland. So Donna, we're coming up close to the end of the interview. Is there anything that you'd like to add to the sphere that I may not have asked you or that you may not have said thus far?
Oh gosh, how to close? Elections are May 4th.
Well, elections are May 4th in Pearland.
Yes, they are. if you're interested in getting involved, like an important part of organizing for this campaign for me is to get new people involved, to help people to understand that they have a voice in the system and they can be heard. It can be scary, I think, if you've never been involved before, but it's a process. And I think I'm very invested. Joseph Say, who's also...
I tell you what, I want to stop you because I want to do something special here.
Yes.
Donna Murphy is running for school board in Pearland, Texas, and she has a message for every single parent and student in Pearland, Texas. Donna Murphy, what is that message?
That is a message to get involved and be heard. May 4th, 2019 is election day, and we are organizing our community as we speak. I think it's important to be engaged in year-round organizing around issues that matter to you. I am very interested in discovering on what the whole breadth of what those issues are. I've talked to a lot of students, administrators, teachers, parents in the district, and that's what you have to do to really reflect what is of importance to your community in elected office. I encourage people to reach out to me and get involved.
How can they reach you?
What's the best way to reach me? Maybe my email address. Should I leave my email address?
Sure. First of all, we have your Twitter address right under you, but also
that would work as well.
Okay, but if there's an email address that you don't want spammed, you don't want it. You probably
that's true. Maybe it's best to reach out to me on either Facebook Messenger, and I'm just Donna Kim Murphy, Dona space Kim space Murphey, or on Twitter. I'm at Dunkin Donna, DUNKINDONA.
Donna, it has been my pleasure to speak to you, and I am pretty sure the pleasure of the audience to have one of Houston's best activists out here. Thank you so kindly for having been here, and we hope to hear from you again. And I hope to be calling you a school board member on May 5th.
Thanks so much for having me, Alberto.
You have a wonderful day, okay?
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you so kindly. Folks, that was Donna Murphy. Look, she is a wonderful activist out here in Texas, and not just basic Texas. She's been around for a long time, doing a whole lot of good things for the entire community. So we thank her for having been here. So anyhow, folks, we're going to have a good rest of the show. You know what? I didn't write a blog of the week today. I didn't write a blog of the week for a very specific reason. But before we get into the blog of the week, there's a piece of the blog that I want to remind you folks. Two things specifically. One, does this sound like a mob thing or not? President Michael Cohen decided that he's not going to testify in front of Congress right now. And why? Because he's concerned for the safety of his family. The president is threatening the safety of a United States citizen's family. Is that a president of the United States or a mob boss? Does this story is kind of, folks are dealing with this story as if it's just a normalization that I don't quite understand, right? But we have somebody that decided they won't testify in front of Congress because they are concerned that they may be harmed by the President of the United States. Folks, by the way, this is a call-in show. Feel free to call at 646-716-5812. Again, that number is 646-716-5812. But I saw that on the TV, passing through the channels, and just couldn't believe that, the guy is not going to testify because he's concerned because of the President of the United States. I just don't get it. The other item, ABC News, reported, well, before that, I want to go into another thing the president did. Now, as you know, for all practical purposes, the president was disinvited, if that's the word, I think that's the word, from giving the State of the Union address until the government is open again. And Nancy Pelosi says as soon as you open the government, we can do the State of the Union. Now he sends her a message saying, I've checked with the security people. I've checked with this. They said it's all right. I will be there on your turf to give the State of the Union. This man is trying to bully the Speaker of the House, a branch of government he has no control over. She is the boss of that branch, that sub-branch of government. She is the boss. The president cannot tell her what to do. She does not work for the president. The president has no power over her. The president only has power to say yes or no to her legislation. And if she gets 3/4 or 2/3 of the Congress to go against the president has no power. Same applies in the Senate. Now, the president thought he was going to be able to bully Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi summarily responded to him, well, I'm sorry. First of all, you cannot check the grounds. She prevented him from having his people come check the grounds as far as how they're going to set things up. And numero dos, she told him categorically in this reply, well, she not categorically, but she used the regular political language, you are not allowed to come into the Congress until we invite you to come. But another thing that he did today is really upsetting to me, and unfortunately to some of my Venezuelan cohorts, my Venezuelan friends, they're going to think it's okay. But the president has recognized the insurgency in Venezuela. The parts of the plutocracy who claim they should be in power in Venezuela, the president has said that is the right president. Maduro is not the president they're saying. Maduro was elected by a majority. Nicolas Maduro was elected by a majority of Venezuelans. They can say, oh, it's a corrupt election and all that kind of stuff if they want. Well, we could say it's a corrupt election that got Donald Trump elected with a minority of the vote. We could say that the minority of the vote was manufactured by them having influence, by him having a foreign power have influence in our election. The last thing the president should be highlighting is some election issue in some other country. Because here's the facts. Here are the facts. The facts are our election probably was more tainted than the election in Venezuela. Suppose some of these countries say, oh no, Hillary Clinton is really the president of the United States and we will not recognize Donald Trump. More than 3 million people, even with a fake election, decided that they wanted Hillary Clinton elected, and by having Donald Trump elected, we will not recognize Donald Trump because he did not win fair and square. Suppose another country in the world told the Americans that. Nicolas Maduro is the president of Venezuela. They need to resolve their own issues. They voted for Nicolas Maduro. There is a and you know, when they talk about socialism in Venezuela, the reason Venezuela is so unaptly served is because the plutocracy in that country is making sure it goes into the ground, just like Donald Trump is doing right now by saying, unless you give me what I want, the government can't open. That is what the plutocracy is telling Nicolas Maduro. That is what they told Hugo Chavez. Unless you do things our way, we will not open. We will not allow the economy to flourish, so we will have all the Venezuelans going to Panama, all the Venezuelans going to Colombia, Brazil, Peru, all these other places. And the reason they're doing that is that, look, there's corruption in every government. So I heard on the morning program, Democracy Now!, this morning, one of the reporters came on and he had the nerve to say, well, yes, it is bad what they're doing, but this government isn't all that good of a government either, meaning Nicolas Maduro. None of these governments are 100% pure or clean. But the fact that we are now supporting almost a coup in Venezuela because we claim that Donald Trump, a person who was illegitimately elected in the United States, and notice now I'm saying, at first I was saying it wasn't illegitimate, but his election in the United States, I think, is categorically illegitimate now. He has some nerve to talk about the Venezuelan election. Look, folks, let me tell you something. Venezuela is sitting on an ocean of oil. And the reason America has so much interest in Venezuela is because of that ocean of oil. That ocean of oil is one of the, and under Venezuela, it's one of the only countries where all that mineral that's under the ground belongs to the people. Unlike here in the United States, where whoever can mine it takes it. It's not quite that easy, but that's what we're talking about, right? So it is dangerous. It is horrendously dangerous what Donald Trump is attempting to do by telling the rest of the world that they are recognizing the insurgency in Venezuela as the president. It is completely wrong. Now, the issue that I really want to talk about today is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, I've got your back. What do I mean by that? What do I mean by I've got Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's back? Here's the reality, folks. They are scared, and it's not only the right wing. The right wing cannot get enough of her. They're just plugging away. This is a woman, and but the people that I'm more concerned about are not the progressives, but people are more concerned about are the liberals who are now concerned about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, concerned about her message. Look, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is refreshing, and let me tell you the reason even many of our rank-and-file Democrats are concerned about Ocasio-Cortez. A lot of Democrats themselves are worried about Ocasio-Cortez, and here's the reason why. Ocasio-Cortez at 29 years old is the millennial generation. As a person in a millennial generation, that is going to be the largest voting bloc going forward. The millennial generation is the largest bloc going forward. We have a very eloquent, intelligent woman who not only is intelligent, but she's speaking practically, and she's speaking the absolute truth about what the plutocracy has done to folks in this country. When she talks about issues, you know, a lot of people like to judge, well, she made a faux pas here, a faux pas there. That is immaterial. This is no dummy. This is an economist. This is a political science major, and she knows her stuff. She may not have a whole lot of experience, but she knows what is wrong. And what is wrong is our current economy. And she made a statement when she spoke to Ta-Nehisi Coates where she said, how is it that a country with billionaires can have people starving? How? How moral is that? So we have a person finally that owed themselves. They do not owe anything to any advertiser. They owe nothing to the plutocracy. They owe nothing to the oligarchy. They owe nothing to the whom? The rich folk. She did it all. And you know why her voice is important? Let me tell you why her voice is important. She didn't get there by an accident. She beat somebody that was likely to be the next Speaker of the House for the Democrats. That's who she beat. That is power. That is the power of her message. And people can say, well, it's restricted to her particular neighborhood or particular district. No, it isn't. You ask people in the polls about what she supports. You ask about that, and you realize that no, most Americans are 100% in favor of the policies that she's speaking about. A Green New Deal. She's talking about Medicare for all. She's talking about redoing student loans. I mean, the thing about it is these things are not only practical for the regular middle class people. These are things that are practical for all Americans. And not only that, would improve business. Now, the billionaires are going to have to pay a hell of a lot more taxes because they have to give back all that money they stole. And when I say that the billionaires stole, I am not saying that hyperbolically. I'm saying they didn't legally, they didn't break the law, but they stole their wealth. And that is one of the things I need to get into the heads of the average American citizen. These are not benevolent people. These billionaires, these ultra multimillionaires, it is not that, I mean, and I'm talking about Bill Gates and I'm talking about Warren. And the reason I'm using Bill Gates is because progressives love to love Bill Gates. Progressives love to love Warren Buffett. Progressives love to love all these billionaires that claim to be progressives, but aren't. They are progressives to a point. You cannot be a billionaire and be a progressive. I said that, and I mean that. You cannot be a billionaire and be a progressive, because it means you bought into the tenet of making your wealth off of somebody else's back. Period. There are no two ways about it, folks. But we have been so indoctrinated and ingrained with that reality that somehow they earned it. They earned it with rules that are skewed for those people who don't work, who don't have much intellect but who knows that system. I need you to understand that. So what Ocasio-Cortez is talking about, what you see Ocasio-Cortez talking about, and the fear that you see that the right wing has. I read a piece this morning. I think it was in Huffington Post or one of those channels, where the people that fear her the most are the Democrats. And people say, well, the reason they fear her is because, they fear her because, oh my God, she's going to go so far to the left that we're going to lose the country. We can't lose the country. The country is already with us. I heard another guy come on TV and said, oh, well, yeah, Medicare for All is powerful, and it is the message. It's a majority of people support the Medicare for All until it's time for them to vote for it. Look at how it has failed in several states. You know why it has failed in several states? It's not because it failed on its merits. It failed because progressives did not go out there and sell it. Progressives have been lazy, and not only lazy, but they have been thinking that Americans are dumb, so they don't want to really give the real message to Americans. Americans are not dumb. Folks, if you're just watching this, please share this program. I forgot to say this up front. If we want this stuff to percolate, we have to share up front, share quickly, so that it starts to make the frame. We're on Facebook Live, we're on YouTube Live, we're on Periscope, and we are on Twitch. So we're all over the place live right now. But the idea is, I would love for you to, the thing is, on these networks, you just have to go ahead and share. But anyhow, when these, they like to say that it means an increase in taxes, and that's how they sell it. Oh, it's too expensive. It is not too expensive. It costs less than our current system, Obamacare, or the one before Obamacare. So we have to be frank. We have to get the message out. We have to stop being lazy, and we have to stop following the lead of the plutocracy. What is happening right now is we have there's an organization right now that is designed to kill Medicare for All. And the way they kill Medicare for All are twofold. They go and they talk about how Medicare for All failed in Bernie Sanders' state, Vermont, because it is so expensive. No, that's not why it failed. It failed because people got lied to. Yes, your taxes are going to go up, and you should want that for Medicare for All, because now you have no medical premium, which is going to be a lot less than your taxes. And yes, the taxes of the billionaires needs to go. Ocasio-Cortez is saying 70%. No, the taxes to billionaires need to go on their marginal increase in income to 90% or more. And let me explain that to you, because there's a good explanation on Vox right now what marginal tax rates look like. Okay, you'd only get these crazy high tax rates after you've made X amount of income. In other words, if you make $100,000, you're probably paying 13% in interest in taxes. But if you make $10 billion on anything over $10 million, you're going to pay 70%. On everything over $500 million, you pay 90%. And what that does is several things. Because when we had those rates, we had a better economy. And why did we have a better economy? Because these companies who would try to extract money, with these CEOs that would extract all this money, suddenly it doesn't make sense to extract the money because most of it goes to the government. Most of it goes to taxes to reinvest into society. So what they do is they leave it into the company so that they can reinvest the way they feel reinvestment should occur. So it serves two purposes. You either take the money out and let we the people decide how to best allocate those resources, or you can, if you want more power in resource allocation, you keep it in the company and you create more jobs and you do all these things. It works. The thing about it is nobody is worth $1 billion. Any excess money a company has is the excess labor of people. In other words, if a company makes a huge profit, that is money that wasn't paid to their employees, okay? And we have to remember that. If a company makes a huge profit, there isn't something inherent in company shareholders that made that money. It is all the people who worked in that company that made that money. To have it disproportionately given to a CEO and shareholders is a figment of our bad thought process. That brain between our ears that had been somehow stigmatized into believing that they are worth what we worked for. Remember that. That is what we tell people whenever we say we can't. Whenever they say they can't afford a raise, it is funny because today there's another show on KPFT, Arnie Arneson. She said Jeff Bezos put out a tweet. Where to best use his $1 billion? He's going into philanthropy. Where to best use his all this $1 billion excesses? And one of the women said, wait a minute. You have a lot of people working for Amazon on food stamps. You have a lot of people who worked on Amazon that made you that billion. Maybe that should tell you that you should be paying them more. If you are constantly getting all that billions and billions of dollars, maybe what it means is that you should be paying your employees more. And that's what it really means. But folks, we have to get to that point where we have people that are not fearful in making these realities. Okay, I got a call. I was supposed to look there. Okay, caller on 314. I think you're going to be hot in a second as soon as I get that. Okay, come on in, caller. You're hot on 4.
Well, I can't agree with that reasoning.
Go ahead.
When a business person, and you cleverly use Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
Amazon does some very good things with its employees, but a normal business person, for instance, I was in structural steel erection for almost 40 years.
Yes.
I erected buildings like the ones that fell in New York during 9/11.
Sure.
And I think it was back in, maybe the 70s when interest rates on savings, especially CDs, are something like 18, 19, 20%. I could have kept my money in the bank, forego the risk,
right,
and all the headaches,
right,
and not do business.
Well, you should have done that.
Just as much. Well, it would done very well.
Well, you should have done that. If you thought that's what you wanted to do, it's a free. You know what we would have. Let me tell you what we would have done then, my friend. Let's say you kept your. I love when business. By the way, I want to let everybody know I was a very, very successful businessman. Okay, I had a software company. I sold to NASA, right back to the government, right back to Boeing. I sold a ton.
But what kind of risk did you have?
I had a lot of risk. Let me tell you, I had over $100 and something thousand on credit cards that I built my business because for reasons many of us should know about, I couldn't get loans, so I did it on the credit card.
That wasn't risk. Let me tell you what risk is.
Please tell me what risk is that I don't know. Yes.
My employees worked hundreds of feet off the ground.
Sure.
Anytime they could have failed.
Right.
Anytime a crane could have failed over and tore up property in a crowded downtown area.
Sure.
I remember one bridge seismic retrofit where it was retrofitting existing bridges for a possibility of earthquake. This was right around the time that they had the last one out in California. I believe it was in San Francisco, but I'm not sure.
Yes, sir.
I had a Missouri Department of Highway project come across my desk, and I didn't want to do it. But we figured it, and I still didn't want to do it. So I tripled the price. Right. And ended up getting the job.
Well, let me explain something to you. I understand that risk. And by the way, that risk, I like how people like to have gradation of risk. I could call some of what risk I had, but here's the deal. Your risk would have been covered if you're a businessman. So your risk would have been covered by having purchased an insurance policy that mitigated that risk. That's why we have insurance companies and free enterprise systems to do that sort of thing. So businesses...
Not in my business, they don't have that.
Well, you know what? Then here's the deal. If they don't have that in your business, and you chose not to do it, and there was nobody to do that business, given that you do believe in supply and demand, something would have happened if that bridge had to be built. My thing is that businessmen want their cake and eat it too. In other words, they like to say, I take a risk. So what? The person who worked for you took a risk. The person who built that bridge could have broken their legs. And that's a risk
and they
too.
would get compensated. That's why we have workers' compensation.
Exactly, that's my point. Everybody
and you have
take.
not only and you also have the secondary injury firm.
Yes.
And some states pay you
So
quite handsomely.
my brother, you
So
are
no, I tell
agreeing
you,
with
those
me.
that think-
You are agreeing with me
Yeah,
without
but
knowing
those
it.
that- yeah, but see, everybody can't be a business person. Everybody don't want to give up their holidays where
I
rather than
agree.
being in the office.
I am
working
with you.
Or falling, laying their head on the. So no, I disagree with.
But let me tell you, can I
Cortez
interrupt
and
you a
her
little bit, my
ideas.
friend? I want to interrupt you just because, and I normally don't do that, but just because I'm running out of time here. And here's the deal. I am with you, okay? You are right when you talk about not everybody wants to take the risk that you take, and you should be compensated more. I agree with you. I really do agree with you. But the part that I disagree with you is how much more of their worth are you deserving of? It's not unlimited. Right now, the way the capitalist system works, it is unlimited. And what I'm saying is we should have a system where that isn't the case. And not only that, we should have a bifurcated system. In other words, we can have the capitalist model coexist for those who want to do it that way, coexistent with the collective model. The problem is the capitalist model doesn't want to have anything other because it then competes with their, what I call the evil that they present to people in really taking away their worth.
But you are just throwing words out there.
Please
You're
tell
not
me how.
Giving any example.
I can give you
you just throwing words out there.
No, I'm not. Let me give you example.
Capital is the worst. Well, I'm listening to you, and I've been in business.
I've been
I had
too.
to meet a $500,000 upwards payroll weekly, and I had to turn around and pay withholding taxes the next day.
And
they allow you 30 days, like they do in some business. Well, here's the thing. Study how the railroads was built in this country, and look at the people. Some went broke on that venture.
Yes.
Study those things.
Yes.
Study shipping. So it's not for everybody. And those that's doing it, I commend them.
Let's not talk past each other. What is your name, sir? Let's not talk past each other.
My name's Pianki.
Pianki, let's not talk past each other. And the reason I'm saying that is as follows. A lot of what you're saying have a whole lot of merit. You're absolutely right in that there are some of us who are able to take more risk. I took a lot of risk when I left. I left very professional jobs to form my own company. Okay? That's definite. And I also took a big risk to become a full-time political activist. I gave it all up. I know what risks look like to both financially and otherwise. What I'm trying to tell you, however, Bianchi, is the following. There is a top limit. It should not be open-ended to the top because we have to realize.
What do you mean open-ended to the top?
In other words, Bezos does not deserve the billions that he has at all. That's what I'm saying. Warren Buffett does not deserve
the billions that he has.
He did not earn that.
If I start a project and I give you a fixed price, then in that project before it's done, it comes change order after change order after change order.
You don't deserve it still. No, you don't.
The profit.
You don't.
So you saying a person don't deserve it?
No, absolutely not. You see, that is, we have been trained into thinking that
a change order is just like another job. A change order
again,
is
you
something
are
that was not included in the original
my
in the
friend,
original document.
You are still speaking from the point of view of a capitalist indoctrinated. What I'm saying is because that is
the best system in the world. Where else is something better?
Nothing is allowed to flourish. That's why. Nothing else is allowed to.
That's not true.
Let me give an example of why it's not allowed to flourish. When Hugo Chavez was in Venezuela, before all the crazy things started to happen, and he's.
No, we're talking about the United States, man. I ain't going to Venezuela.
There you go. I mean, you said nothing. No other system ever happened.
Venezuela is a basket case.
Now it is. But you have to understand the history.
All the time.
You have to understand the history of places like Venezuela before you can say that. You have to understand what Carlos Andrés Pérez did. You have to understand how Hugo Chavez came about. You have to understand how a rich country in resources can be poor to the people that it has when you had a plutocracy that ran everything. When you put that into perspective, it's not just a simple thing.
Why did they let it run everything?
That's the same thing I'm asking in the United States.
Why didn't the people make changes?
That's the same thing I'm asking in the United States and what I'm fighting for right now, to make change in the United States.
And let me give you an answer.
Yes.
Let me give you an answer, because the people realize they live in the best there is at this point in time.
Well,
they don't want to change.
Well, let me tell you something, Bianchi. If you think this is the best that we have to offer, where most people are marginalized, then you're really a capitalist.
Is there?
Oh, right here. We're going to change what's here.
Venezuela is down on its back.
Yes.
Let's see the people that's champion what Cortez is talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Let them go to Venezuela and set an example.
No, here's what we
see here, world. This is what we done.
No, here's what we're going to do, Bianchi. Let me tell you what we're going to do, and then I'm going to have to go because we're past our time, Bianchi. I'd love for you to have called in earlier because I like to entertain your discussion. But here's what we are going to do. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is absolutely right, and not only right from a moral standpoint, right from an economic standpoint. Her words as far as taxation and all of that are economically sound, and not only economically sound, and at times it have been proven already in actuality. So let me tell you what we are going to do.
Where has it been proven?
Well, it's been proven when you look at the in America, when we had a 90% tax rate on the marginal higher incomes, what we saw is companies left more money into companies, and in doing so, they were more
when
people.
They had, do you know that when they had a 90%, in 1986, that they lowered the tax rate, that high rate, and
Yes.
took away deductions?
Yes, I do.
Even at a 90% tax rate, you had deductions. Heck,
Yes.
I had, if I made a $1.4 million with the deductions, and I love them, and we have more based on Donald Trump, I probably paid $14,000 in income tax.
I tell you what.
But I was allowed deductions in running the business, expanding
Right.
the business.
I got to close. We
providing
are at the end of the
things.
show, Bianchi, but I want you to call back in tomorrow, and we'll discuss this more in detail because
You have a,
yeah, I've
yeah,
got.
you go ahead and get off.
I've
I don't want you to spend up all your dimes.
Look, thank you so kindly for calling
All right,
in, my
I'll see
friend. We'll talk at another time, folks. Before I go, I have to do my quick pitch here. Please remember, this is a progressive show that needs your support. Please remember to go to patreon.com/politicsdoneright. Again, that is patreon.com/politicsdoneright. Support the program, and it's very inexpensive to do so. Bianchi had some very good points but however, he's wrong on many specific issues. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, what she's talking about with taxation, what she's talking about on these other issues, make a whole lot more sense when it comes to the people at large. We've been indoctrinated into a capitalist system that says somehow one is worth so much more than the other based on just capital. We have to break that reality. There are many ways to do it, and we're going to talk about that going forward. Again, this is please go ahead and support the program at patreon.com/politicsdoneright. Thank you so kindly for listening. We'll be back tomorrow. You guys have a wonderful, wonderful rest of the day.
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Williams. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Williams. Let us engage. It is politics done right.
1, 2, 3, 4.